Right. Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans about their journeys and stories with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Mark O'Brien to the conversation. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's lovely to see you. So, as always, I'll do a very brief introduction to how we got to this recording. I'll let you do a proper introduction in a moment, Mark, let people know a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing. But Mark and I'll be honest with everybody on this session, I didn't expect to be recording a podcast with Mark at any time. So this has been an interesting experience for me to sort of, pick up the mantle, go back into the podcast recordings, pick up with Mark, catch up. We've known each other for a number of years through the travel industry, a past life of mine, and sort of stay connected in some ways. We did talk during COVID and sort of stayed connected through socials and so on. But I'm not going to share anything about your story and what's going to happen in this conversation. And I will let you just do a very brief introduction, Mark, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, certainly. And good to see you again, Matt, I have to say. Looking great. So, yeah, I've been in the industry, travel industry now, nearly 35 years. It's been an industry that's treated me really well. I've been very lucky enough to travel an enormous amount as well. And when I look back on those memories now, I do feel extremely fortunate and very grateful to what the travel industry has provided for me. I think particularly during COVID was a very difficult time. It was kind of a bit of a perfect storm for me during that time where my father died during that period. Very difficult, obviously, with the funeral and everything else. I was very close to my dad too, so that was really tough. Obviously, companies obviously shedding staff left, right, and centre. But it allowed me to set up my own consulting company, which I really enjoyed doing at Avenue 5. That's where we consult to financial institutions when they're determining investments inside their industry. And then I've always enjoyed my sport. Sport's been a huge part of my life through the years. I was sort of national kind of level swimmer when I was younger. Came into rugby, pretty high level there. Went into karting. A lot of people who are my friends on LinkedIn would have karted with me as well. So super enjoyment there. Then I fell into tennis, and I fell into tennis quite late. But fortunately, again, at decent levels, so county, Hertfordshire type of level. And I played all the way up till August 21, I think it was, August 21. And in fact, that was my final tennis match. And that tennis match was actually against the British Army national team to celebrate my club, Rickmansworth Tennis Club, our 100-year anniversary. The reason it was my last match, I was having a lot of kind of neck problems and also problems during matches latterly where my tennis racket would fly out of my hand for, if I was serving or hitting a forehand or whatever. I've had a lot of orthopedic work done on my back through the years. I've probably had 4, even 5, I think, back surgeries. A lot of my back is held together by titanium. So maybe that was interlinked. So unfortunately, one of my good friends is also my orthopedic surgeon. That's never a good thing that they're a good friend of yours. And he spent a number of months with me, and we decided that we were going to do some neck surgery. And that was in December 2021. And it was quite major. It was kind of 2 or 3 level vertebrae surgery. About 10 days before the surgery, he pulled me in. He went, Mike, he said, I'm not happy. He said, I just don't think. He said, yes, your neck, you could probably do with some work. He says, but I just don't think it's the root cause. So I went, okay, well, what do you think? He went, well, I'd like you to see a neurology consultant. So I went, okay. I didn't really understand anything really about neurology. And they kind of leapt into gear really fast as well with so many different kinds of tests and MRIs. 3, I think, nerve conduction tests I had. And I was kind of given a bit of a heads up that the problem was neurological, was not actually orthopedic. So finally, on the 17th of March, it was last year, St. Patrick's Day, I remember this, I was told that I had motor neurone disease. So motor neurone disease, obviously known as MND. A lot of people in the US will know it as ALS as well. So they're all kind of the same thing. And for those who don't know MND, it's essentially a disease. It affects the brain, affects the nerves, and it affects your muscles. And eventually it will lead to respiratory failure. That's what happens with MND. Timelines are really hard to judge. They can say sort of average between sort of 2 to 4 years is generally the average. I don't know how long I've had this. There are people who have lived obviously beyond that, but clearly having that laid out to me on the 17th of March, I've been in a tailspin, to be honest with you, because it is a terminal, obviously, illness. But that wasn't the end. That was probably I thought that was, I was going to deal with my emotions then. But then they said, listen, you're going to have to go second and third opinion because of the severity of the diagnosis, and a series of tests which were performed at the Royal Free in Hampstead National Neurology Centre in Queen Square, London, 2 other consultant opinions as well. And that took between March last year and Christmas last year, which is a pretty long time. And I'd have to tell you, I was mentally shot to pieces. I've always been pretty strong in both my business and my personal life as well. But being faced with this was just head spin stuff. And I took the decision not to tell my children or my family, particularly my mum. There was many reasons for that, which I'll come on to later. It's because I wanted to be sure that it was, because when you get a terminal illness diagnosis, it takes you a long time to get your head around that one. And then you think, well, they've got it wrong, so there's going to be hope. But that March to Christmas period, the longer the testing went on and the closer we got to that Christmas period, I was not in a good place. I was in a really bad place. However, when, in some respects, and it sounds a little strange, there was some kind of relief in Christmas last year when I was told, I reconfirmed I think by another 2 consultants, Mark, it is 100% motor neuron disease. I went, okay. I then took the decision of when I would share with my children and my family and my closest friends. I've had a few very close friends along for the ride, plus my uncle, who's my dad's brother. Eugene is his name, best bloke on the planet, I tell you. My mum was going to New Zealand for 4 months, and she was going out. My mum's a very sprightly, healthy 81-year-old now, but she was going out to see my sister Amanda and her grandsons down there. And I knew if I told mum at Christmas, she wouldn't go. And this is probably the final time of her traveling. So I took the decision to go, right, I'm not going to be telling my closest family now. So that was one of the reasons. Second reason was my eldest daughter, Lauren, Lolly, I call her. If I call her Lauren, she thinks I'm telling her off. She had been staying with me. And in some way that was brilliant. In another way, there was a huge pressure because every letter that came through that I wasn't here, my God, would she see it? And she got her dream job in Cornwall, beautiful part of the world, just outside Falmouth, where she rescues seals and penguins for a living. I mean, what a job that is. I mean, she's a marine biologist anyway, and she absolutely loves that. And she was moving down there. And again, it was around this sort of November, Christmas time period. And I thought, I'm not going to tell her because she might not then go for that. And then you kind of get a cycle about, well, when is the right time to tell people? And my twins, which are Georgia and David, they had their 21st in actually March the 19th of this year. And I didn't want anything to interrupt that as well. That's kind of celebration, if you like. But also at the same time, Georgia was going through her final degree, which, they've suffered so much during COVID as far as university shutdowns and everything else. And she works really hard. And, she went through a lot of stuff trying to finish her degree. And that degree announcement, I think it was mid-May. My son was also, he's not quite in his final year at it. He's in engineering in Cardiff, but he was sitting some important exams as well. So I decided mid-May to beginning of June of this year was the time that I would then kind of come clean with everything and not hold anything back either. The conversation, obviously, with my family, particularly my children, was incredibly difficult. In some respects, the conversation with my mum was a little harder because there's a bit of a reality there that, I, in most probability, will she will outlive me. And, you know, Matt, as a parent yourself, and many parents who'll be listening, that's the worst thing you could possibly hear from one of your children. So a lot of people, the family and friends have been brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. They know I'm very independent. I'm not the type of bloke you ring up and go, "Oh, Mark, how are you? Are you okay?" I'm fine. Well, I'm not fine, obviously, but if I need you, then I know you're there for me. And that's really important to me for being really independent. You know, there will be a time where a lot of my independence is obviously taken away. But right now, you know, I want to be focusing on positive things. I didn't feel a relief when I told everyone. Everyone says, "Oh, you must feel much better." I felt terrible because my overlying or underlying thought was, I've caused a lot of pain to a lot of people. And seeing them, hearing them upset was dreadful for me, because I was kind of hiding a secret, if you like.
Yeah, of
It was
course.
okay because it was just me and a few friends and my uncle, but now it was out in the open. You know, that and still now that still pains me. I know when I visit my mum, which I do quite regularly, I know she's probably in tears after I leave, but she's trying to put on such a positive front. You know, my youngest daughter Georgia, you know, she's living here. She's been living here for a time. She's been a tower of support. Again, you know, I know she's going to be having her moments away from me, and the same with Lauren and obviously David as well. So that took a good 6-8 weeks just to come down off that. So yeah, that's kind of my story. That's, you know, it sounds a bit doom and gloom. I mean, luckily I'm still able to work, which is a really good thing, because that keeps my mind off stuff. But the last point I'll make just on this is people ask me to describe it. So you start to lose mobility, if you like. Particularly at the moment in time, it's down the right side of my body. So my right leg is kind of I drag along, and then my right hand I can't really use now. But if you gave me 100 kilos, I could probably hold it. If you asked me to press a remote control or turn a key in a lock, I can't do it. Now, eventually, maybe it'll spread over to the left side as well. That's where the mobility. But right now, you know, I have a brilliant health team around me, brilliant doctors, brilliant nurses. I have mental health people coming to see me every couple of weeks, whatever, where we can, you know, talk things through that I can't or I don't feel I want to talk about, you know, perhaps with my family, and they've been really helpful in that respect as well. And my light bulb moment, if you like, was to go, right, how are we going to make a positive out of this bloody thing? Because I'm not going to curl up in a ball. It's just not me. I want to do something positive. I want to do something that inspires, if I can. So maybe I'll pause there for a moment, Matt, because I was on a bit of a roll there.
Right, that was the introduction, Mark. So don't worry, I didn't even ask you to. No, I'm joking.
Sorry.
Oh, brilliant. Honestly, I thank you so much for sharing that. And I know you've talked about it a little bit. You know, I only found out about this 31st of July when you put a post out there. That was how recently this is. You know, we're recording this sort of mid August or late August. You know, so it's only been a few weeks since, you know, the world at large, I guess, became aware that this was happening, and your experience that you were living through. And I do just want to, before we go into the what's coming, because I'm so excited for you and you know, energized by what you're thinking positively, I do just want to go backwards, if that's okay, just for a minute, because, you know, I want to delve just a little bit into that period of time where you weren't able to talk to anybody, or you chose, you know, very carefully why, and you gave your reasons very eloquently. Where were you in, and I know you said it wasn't easy. Can you describe a little bit more about the mental health, you know, because people would have been around you still, right? So you would have still, I guess, seeing your mom and your kids and everything else. So was there any showing of what was really happening, or do you think it was all masked really well? I don't know. I'm just going to throw that at you, because obviously this is helping us to understand more about the mental health part.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Matt. I think it's over M&D, you have behavioral changes anyway.
Yeah.
So you can have really bad days, but you can have really good days as well at the same time. The trouble is, you don't know how you're going to be when you wake up in the morning. But like I said, you know, when you feel a perfect storm coming on you, you know, I've dealt with a lot of storms in my life, and I've rocked some brilliant illnesses in my life as well and come through it. But I think I was completely lost within myself. I would put it down My local doctors here were fantastic because they were terrified on my mental health that something might happen. You know, I've never been a person to think about suicidal thoughts. Uh, but yeah, why not? Yeah, I did. I remember my neighbor, who are brilliant. I mean, both sides of my neck, they are fantastic people. And I remember they literally broke into my house because they heard someone screaming in the garden, punching a brick wall.
Wow.
And that was me. So I was just I felt like I was in a washing machine. There was just no way out, and I was trying to be strong for my children, for my family, and also my friends. But then I had to let off steam in some kind of other way, and I didn't know how to do it because I felt a lot had been taken away from me, particularly from a sport perspective. Because I've always used sport as I'm not saying I'm quite aggressive when I play sport, but you know, competitively and fairly. But I just felt lost, to be honest with you, Matt. And did it reach some dangerous points? Yes, it did. Will it reach dangerous points in the future? No, it won't. No. I've come through that area of my life, and I feel that whatever comes at me now, I can take it, because nothing will ever replicate telling my children, my mum, about my condition. But yeah, it was lonely. I was very lucky to have some really good people around me who recognize certain things, but mentally, like I said, it's a new thing for me, Matt. I mean, I've so admired, you know, the work you do and the raising the awareness of the importance of mental health, and how it's becoming more challenging as time goes by, because life isn't getting easier, right? You know, and I kind of powered through stuff, you know, a bit bullish, but to be hit with something like this, that there is nothing I can do about it. You know, I can read every book in the world, I can attend seminars, I can think positive thoughts, etc. But ultimately, there is no cure. No one has ever been cured from motor neurone disease. Yeah. Will there be a cure in the future? I really do believe there will be, but I think you know, a lot of people now are probably getting to understand MND a little bit more. I just didn't have a clue about it, so I just overloaded myself with Google, if you like, just trying to understand this thing, and then having experts around me like to really help, and they really kept a really close eye on me. I wasn't hospitalized during that period. I was for the tests and everything else. So it was the darkest place in my life between March and December last year.
Yeah, well, fascinating. Thank you for sharing that as well. And you know, it's that realization that actually, and one thing we often forget, and I talk about this sort of in the work that we do, is the impact of a physical diagnosis to our mental health. You know, and it's a really dangerous thing, actually. You know, in terms of how it's managed, if it's not managed well, and how easily you can take that information, especially when it's limited in your knowledge or an awareness of what it is first, which is why you go straight into that search mode. I need to search for information. I need to know what this is about. I need to know, which leads into something that I'm really passionate about, which is saying, look, we only ever know what we need to know when we need to know it. Or wouldn't it be good if we knew stuff before we needed to know it, so we were prepared for stuff, or at least we had a greater way of supporting ourselves, which is why this whole mental health conversation for me is a proactive one versus a reactive one. It should never be when somebody's on the floor struggling. It should always be, let's talk about it early and help. So it's great to hear you had that support around you, Mark. I'm really, really pleased that was there for you and continuing. And I guess the question that I was thinking when you were saying that was, at what point did it change? At what point did you sort of let go and say, I don't want to be down here now, I want to do something, or I want to see it slightly different? Do you know when that happened?
Yeah, I did. Like I said, it was weird, sort of end of November, beginning of December, when I was given the reconfirmation of the reconfirmation.
Okay. Yeah.
And in some respects, I just went, oh, thank for that. Yeah. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I've always, around December time, I've always gone away for a couple of weeks in December, and it's just me. I just go away, normally to Egypt, get some warmth and to swim and whatever. Yeah. And I went over to my favorite hotel down in Hurghada, which is a brilliant seafront and quite warm waters as well. And I got there and it was like going home. I was just, right, I've got 2 weeks to get my head together here and kick into gear and get a plan going on about, you know, what I want to do in the future, how I'm going to tell people, how I'm going to share it. and also to understand others' mental health as well. Because it's one thing me sharing something with someone, but what is the impact on their mental health when they hear it, and how can they deal with it, etc. So I gave myself a 2-week plan down in Egypt and furiously writing stuff down and everything else. And I came back from there much more positive, as in my head it was a plan. I spoke to the children's mother, name's Tiffany, at length, because we're not with each other, but we're very close friends, and she knew from the start as well, and she helped me make decisions as far as the children is concerned. And again, she's been a tower of support as well. I was kind of running things past her, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. She was going, Mike, you just have to do what you need to do. And I'm just taking all these factors kind of into account. So I think there was more, it comes down to acceptance, I think it came down to.
Yeah.
Of, okay, I have a terminal illness. This is what's going to happen. I can't predict the next day. What I can predict now is if I'm having a bad day, even mentally a bad day, it's okay to have a sofa day. It's okay to just go for a walk for a couple of hours if you can do it. Not as long now, obviously, for me, because I kind of shuffle along a little bit, but it's okay to do those things. It's okay not to feel okay. Just accept that tomorrow's another day. It's okay not to feel okay for a week, but actually you might have a really positive week the next week. But now it's all about me trying to look at the positive side, but also look back on my life and not being morbid here, of how incredibly lucky I've been in terms of my family, in terms of my children, my friends, my sport, my career, which still continues, obviously, and how immensely grateful I am for that.
That's incredible. And taking that moment to take time to reflect, and there's an interesting sort of dynamic in play, which is about grieving, so the grieving process of change. And once you get to that point of acceptance, it does feel like you've lifted the weight a little bit, or the light has come a little bit better.
It's so interesting you said that, Matt. It's one of the terms I learnt, which I never knew this term before, was something called anticipated grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it particularly helped my family and friends to kind of call that out a little bit. They're saying, I'm crying about this, I'm really sad about this, and I'm shocked about this, but you're still here. Yeah. And you're still kind of talking normally and everything else. I did stuff about a month ago. It's one of the weirdest things I think I've ever done. And I laughed when I did it. I did something called voice banking. Okay. So do you know what voice banking is? Have you heard of that?
Sort of preparing for when you lose your voice. Is that what it's about? So you can have a robotic version of your own voice.
Yeah. But this version, luckily the MND Association, who are fantastic people, they support families and people living with MND. They provided some software, and literally it sounds like my voice. Which is fantastic. I had the time of my life doing this thing, and I have no idea why. I felt guilty afterwards for laughing, just thinking how bizarre life's journey has taken me on, that now I have to prepare to voice bank my voice. But I did, back to the anticipated grief thing, I think that really helped a lot of my family to go, it's okay to feel sad. You are still seeing me, and everyone says, well, you still look really well and whatever. But it's a gradual process. It's not, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and get a message from my daughter or son saying Mark's not here anymore. It's a gradual process over time. We don't know how much time that is, but like I said, with whatever time I've got left, I'm going to live it in the best way I can.
Right. I applaud that, and I think that's absolutely, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because the timeline, or there is a timeline now, and we're all on a timeline, right? This is a reality. Just most of us don't know what the timeline is, and I think you've got the opportunity to do those positive things, and that's where I want to take this to now. And thank you for sharing everything you've shared. I really genuinely appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody listening will understand a little bit more about how it's playing out for you and how things have been. So thank you. But let's talk about your plans, because now there's an event that's coming up, and I want you to talk about why, how, and when, and everything else around it. Just give us the scoop. Tell us what's going on.
Well, this is the point of the conversation, Matt, where I think you need to tell your viewers that we're having this conversation in the morning, because what I'm about to say, people will think, surely he's been drinking. So I've gone back to my kind of first love, if you like. My first love is swimming. That was my first love. And even recovering from all my back surgeries, I kind of did self-physio, was the swimming part. So I've always kind of, when I've had something going on, I've had the water, and water to me is a really big thing. Not just swimming in it, gazing out at it, doing whatever you need to do with water. So it was in that December in Egypt. I was swimming around. I was thinking, do you know something? I could do a charity swim here.
Yeah.
So I've done a few charity swims in the past for spinal research, hence with the back surgery, and they've all been a little bit mad. One of them was across the Sea of Galilee in Israel. Another one was Alcatraz to San Francisco Harbor. Geez, I nearly died on that swim. That was horrendous. So I thought, what could I do, and what are the reasons for doing what I'm thinking about? So I've decided to take part in my own event, which will be on the 24th of September at a place called Denham Water Ski Club, which is about 10-15 minutes from Heathrow, which will be an attempt of the longest open water unaided swim ever done with a person living with MND. And for the last kind of 3 months, the Guinness Book of World Records people, who have been fantastic, they've been researching this all over the world and trying to put in a sort of classification of disability, which they've found now. So the attempt will be 10.5 kilometers, so around 6.7 miles, 10,500 meters in open water. I'm allowed to wear a wetsuit, like I said, down at Denham. And I came up with this crazy idea in December, but then it kind of started to build up a little bit.
Yep.
And then I thought about the motivation for doing it. So why am I doing this? And there was 4 or 5 primary reasons. The first one is to raise the awareness of MND.
Yep.
I think if I can do something by breaking a world record, that's surely going to gather, hopefully, a lot of publicity, media, whatever, that more people will learn about what MND is. Yep. Secondly, for those who are living with MND, that to give them some kind of hope that when you think it's all impossible, you can find a way to make it possible. I thought that was a really big part of what I'm trying to, and some of the MND community, if you like. I mean, I've had messages from all over the world. It's been so fantastic, because that was primarily what I wanted to do. Third thing, of course, is to raise funds for MND research. MND in the home counties, particularly my home counties of Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, but we hope to extend that as well once the targets are kind of been reached. I think fourthly, penultimately, was I'm very close to my children. I've always been close to my children. We have a fantastic relationship together. And again, not to sound too morbid, it was kind of one last major life lesson, and it was never give up. They framed a nice photo of me with a nice story from Dylan. I think it's Dylan Thomas, the poet. Do not go quietly into that good night. So that's kind of a bit of a theme going on. Yeah. And lastly was, I need something whilst I still can. Yeah. And it's a hugely long distance. I do have to take oxygen during it, but I can't stop in the water, because then it won't be classified. So, and all kinds of, which I won't bore you with, about the sort of training regime that I've been going through. It is tough. Is it with my doctor's orders? No, I can't get signed off on it. He's going, you're crazy man for doing this. But I think my motivations for the 5 things I just shared with you just overpower everything as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to nail it. But it's tough. I'm in the middle. I'm up to around 7 kilometers at the moment. I'll be over 8 at the weekend, and then by mid-September I'll get to my kind of 9. That's the marker. You've done marathons before. You don't run a marathon before a marathon. So hopefully I'll get my there'll be hopefully a lot of people there supporting, etc. We're hoping the BBC is going to film it as well, which would be pretty cool. So yeah, that's for me. I don't want to call it silver lining, because it's not. It is, for all the reasons I've stated. That's what I want to be doing and focus on, and it gives me something to focus on as well. Obviously, I've had my work, and that continues, which is brilliant, because I can focus on that piece as well. But I can also spend a lot more time for me now. And in this respect, me is about that swim on the 24th of September, and we'll give it a go, Matt.
Well, you'll do more than give it a go, right? You're going to get it done. You are going to get it done. It will be, and I have absolute confidence and faith that you will do this. I'm super impressed. I'll tell you for why, because I am not a swimmer. You know, ask me to run, swimming thing to me, I can't think of anything that I couldn't be doing right now. So I have absolute confidence, faith, and I'm inspired by your perspective, and I think that's so powerful. And we'll drop the links to the details of the event into the post for this and everything else, and just to sort of call out to everybody out there listening. And I hope lots of people listen to this. I really do, because I think it's been such an insightful, inspiring, and sort of interesting story and perspective. And that's what I love about this is just sort of sitting down with mates or people that I've known for a long time or people who I've never met, and just hearing them talking about their journey and their experience, and you're trying to put something positive into that, which I think is so powerful, Mark, and I genuinely do. And like I say, for anybody out there listening, please do go and check out what Mark's up to, and keep close, because hopefully I'll have just spoken to somebody that's going to be a world record holder. That's something amazing.
That will be the intention. Maybe you can invite me back afterwards, Matt. I might not be able to talk.
Yeah, definitely, I'd love to.
One interesting point, I think, being now really open about things.
Yeah.
I'm not a completely open type of person. I'm much more comfortable in my own skin closed. But something clicked inside me to go, if you start to share with others, maybe it will help others as well. And I've been shocked myself about how much I've shared, even today, like speaking with you. And a lot of people have said, the post you said, that's so brave, to open yourself up. I don't consider that brave whatsoever. I just did what I needed to do. And I know some people can feel perhaps a little uncomfortable with that, being faced with that level of openness, if you like, particularly in, what is quite a sad subject, obviously. But again, that's me just going, do you know something? I have nothing to lose here. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. I want to try and help people whilst I still can. And event I can do that I know I can help people, and it's really important to me. No matter what happens, it's important to me. I'm going to have my children join me for the last kind of kilometre of the swim, and a couple of other people as well. But its own challenges at the same time. If that lake is too cold, I can't do it because my hand freezes, my leg freezes, and also because of MND, you get a lot of cramp. So you've got to learn how to deal with cramp in the water. You've got to learn how to deal with taking on oxygen for respiratory, etc. So
feeling this whole swimming malarkey,
Oh, no. I mean, who knew?
Who wants to be doing this?
I've had swimming burns and everything else going on. So I think.
By the way, have you told your children they're swimming with you at the end? Do they know this?
I do. My girls were very happy. My boy was. How far's that then? He's on holiday with his girlfriend at the moment. I went, go and practice, do a half an hour swim, and then you can join me for the last half an hour. So
that'd be wonderful as well to finish that with them as well. That'd be very poignant, and that'll be an achievement as well, and they'll celebrate that. They'll remember that, and they'll be made up by it, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow, where have we been, eh? Where have we been? And I think this is, sharing your story. I genuinely have to say, from my side, we spoke about this before. I've got some personal investment in MND through a personal experience with my uncle, and through our running club last year. Sadly, we lost somebody to MND. I understand it. I from an outsider's perspective, I don't understand it from inside. And I think what you shared today has really helped to understand a little bit more about the sort of the mental health impact of the illness, the disease, and also sort of what you can do and achieve still. And I think there's this wonderful guy Rob Burrows out there who's a big he's done huge amounts with his friend, and it's just, let's keep these positive conversations in frame. I really think that, as much as people might feel uncomfortable, and you're right, uncomfortable actually is something we need to become more comfortable with, because real life isn't comfortable. I beg to sort of argue with anybody to say your life is really comfortable all the time. It just isn't the case, is it? You've explained so many elements of your life that I feel were very uncomfortable, especially some of those surgeries definitely would link into some of that uncomfortability. But sharing and being open genuinely is the future of what we're trying to achieve. It's how do we know more about mental health? Well, we have to talk about it, don't we? We have to open it.
Well, you for example, with all the work you're doing with mental health, you don't know how many hundreds, thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people that you may have helped, and your guests may have helped as well. But it's not about that. We're talking about trying to inspire others as well. Hopefully that gives them some help. I'll give you one last story. People have been very generous on my Just Giving page, and I got this weird sum of money sent to me from my nephew, 16 years old, down in New Zealand, a guy called Sam. And I had to email his mum and go, listen, I think a mistake's been happened here. She's emailed me back to win. No, he is strongly out of this and has used his savings. Wasn't the monetary aspect. I was shocked at that. 16-year-old in New Zealand, just go, no, I want to empty my savings and just give it to you and donate. 7 o'clock, so I recorded a video for it. And then he sent me a video back, which was one of the loveliest videos that I have ever seen. He was so heartfelt and he felt so strongly about what I was doing. And I kind of smiled. And as I was swimming, I was thinking, you know, that's why I'm doing this thing.
Yeah.
I'm doing that because it impacts others and that they got a feeling with it. And hopefully, and I'm sure, you know, him along with many others, especially my children, they'll go on to do things like this in their futures. Yeah. No doubt. So that was my last little story on that one.
And I think you're an amazing role model, mate. And I really do. And I think that's, you know, people see it. You're right. You know, when we talk about it openly like this, people see it, and it may only be one person, right? But if that one person gets something from that and they feel that there's hope or there's something, you know, we talk about hope a lot in mental health, and, you know, it's a really important aspect of how we lead our lives. You know, if we give up hope, we've lost it all, right? That's the reality. Keep hoping, you know. Seriously, mate, I'm so thankful, grateful for you to come on and talk to me about this. I know when I saw your post, the first thing was, oh my God, I could do a podcast, or we could do a podcast. I think you said it actually. And as soon as I see somebody say, do you want to record something? Yeah, let's get this going. But thank you. I would just pass the mic to you for one final thought. If you've got any final message you want to share or send, I'll pass that over to you.
Thank you. Well, firstly, thank you for the opportunity for doing this. Again, raising that awareness is really important, and this will help that as well. I think I come back maybe to something I said earlier, was even if you think it's impossible, you know, it can be possible. You can find a way. You know, a lot of viewers that will see this will have lost loved ones, will be going through their own difficulties, physical and mental. Maybe it's themselves, or maybe with their families, etc. You know, I have a lot of friends who lost their parents, you know, just after they were born. You know, I've just been really fortunate. And I think, again, it's that as well. I know we talk about being grateful for things, but, you know, don't try and rush through life. You know, when I took my children on a very poignant trip last August to replicate the first trip I ever did. I took them to Athens and a little island called Poros, stayed in the same hotels, did the same journey by boat, etc. And I remember walking with them and going, I was walking so much slower and just going, enjoy this moment, live in this moment, because tomorrow's never promised.
And that's a wonderful way to finish this episode. You're absolutely right, and I live and, you know, live by that thought as well. You know, we got to live today, right? This is it. Mark, thank you so much. All the very best with the swim. Good luck. I take it you're wearing armbands, because I would be. Or, I know you said you were in a wetsuit. Maybe you're beyond the armbands. I definitely. But mate, honestly, I wish you all the very best with that. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be, you know, keeping an eye out to see how things progress for you. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Look after yourself, and good luck.
You're very welcome, Matt. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.